I am Rejan Merete from BS Crem 1A, reporter of Chapter 3 Philippine History Spaces for Conflict and Controversies. Learning objectives: to interpret historical events using primary sources, to recognize the multiplicity of interpretation that can be read from historical texts, to identify the advantages and disadvantages of employing critical tools in interpreting historical events through primary sources, to demonstrate ability to argue for or against a particular issue using primary sources. In this chapter, we will analyze four historiographical problems in the Philippine history in an attempt to apply what we have learned thus far in the work of historian in the process of historical inquiry. Earlier, we have been introduced to history as a discipline, the historical method, and the content and context analysis of primary sources, two key concepts that need to be defined before proceeding to the historical analysis of problems in a history are interpretation and multi-perspectivity. Making sense of the past, historical interpretation. History is the study of the past, but a more contemporary definition is centered on how it impacts the present through its consequences. Geoffrey Baraclough defines history as the attempt to discovery, on the basis of fragmentary evidence, the significant things about the past. He also notes the history we read, true based on facts, is strictly speaking not factual at all, but a series of accepted judgments. Such judgments of historians on how the past should be seen make the foundation of historical interpretation. Ang history ay pag-aaral tungkol sa pangyayari sa nakaraan at kung paano nakakaapekto sa kasalukuyan. Geoffrey Baraclough. Ayon kay Geoffrey Baraclough, ang history ay pagtuklas ng bagay-bagay sa mga nakaraan na sinusuportahan ng mga ebidensya. Dagdag pa niya, ang mga bagay na nalalaman tungkol sa history ay hindi naman talaga masasabing totoo o pawang katotohanan. Sa halip, sila ay tinatawag na accepted judgment o paniniwala. Ang bawat pananaw ng historians ay nagsisilbing foundation ng historical interpretation. The Code of Kalansiaw is a mythical legal code in the epic history, Maragtas, before it was revealed as hoax. It was a source of pride for the people of Aklan. In fact, a historical marker was installed in the town of Batan, Aklan in 1956 with the following text: Code of Kalansiaw, Dato Bendehara Kalansiaw, 3rd Chief of Panay, born in Aklan, establishes government in Peninsula of Batang Aklan, Sakop. Considered the first Filipino lawgiver. He promulgated in about 1433 a penal code now known as Code of Kalansiaw containing 18 articles. Don Marcelino Aurelia Zaragoza, Spain, obtained the original manuscript from an old chief of Panay which was later translated into Spanish by Rafael Morviedo Isamanay. It was only in 1868 that it was proved a hoax, when William Henry Scott, then the doctoral candidate at the University of Santo Tomas, defended his research on pre-Hispanic sources in the Philippine history. He attributed the code of historical fiction, written in 1913 by Jose E. Marco, titled Las Antiguas Leyendas de la Isla de Negros. Marco attributed the code itself to a priest named Jose Maria Fabon. Prominent Filipino historians did not dissent to Scott's findings, but there are still some who would like to believe that the code is a legitimate document. The Code of Kalansiaw, ito ay isang legal code sa history ng Maragtas. Bago pa man nalaman na ito ay panlilinlang, kinilala ito at ipinagmalaki ng mga mamamayan sa Aklan. Ginawan pa nga ito ng historical marker sa Aklan noong 1956. Nakasulat dito ang tungkol kay Dato Bendehara Kalansiaw, na isang 3rd Chief of Panay, at ipinanganak sa Aklan, at pinamunuan ang Batang Aklan, Sakop. Siya rin ay kinilala bilang first Filipino lawgiver at nakapagtala ng 1433 Penal Code na mas kilala sa tawag na Code of Kalansiaw na naglalaman ng 18 articles. Pero ayon kay Don Marcelino Ortega Zaragoza sa Spain, Nakuha niya ang original manuscript sa dating chief of Panay na kalaunan naman ay isinalin ni Rafael Morbiedo Ismanay sa salitang Spanish. Noong 1868 lamang nalaman na ang code na ito ay hindi totoo nang mapatunayan ito ni William Henry Scott sa kanyang research tungkol sa pre-Hispanic sources in the Philippines. Iniugnay niya ang code na ito sa isang historical fiction na isinulat naman ni si Marco noong 1913. Ito ay ang Las Antiguas Leyendas de la Isla de Negros, kung saan ang manunulat na si Marco naman ay iniugnay ang code na ito sa isang pari na si Jose Puron. Samantalang, ang mga kilala at mahusay na istoryan naman ay sumasang-ayon sa mga nalaman ni Scott, ngunit may iilan pa ring naniniwala na ang code ay totoo o isang lehitimong dokumento. Bago pa ikalat ng mga istoryan ang mga nalaman nila, inaaral muna nilang maigi ang primary sources upang di magkaroon ng kalituhan ang mga nagbabasa at sinisiguradong maiintindihan ito ng lahat. Lalo pat ang istorya ay mahalagang malaman ng lahat. Sa paraang ito, mabibigyang senso halaga ang nakaraan. Ang interpretasyon tungkol sa nakaraan ay maaaring magbago. Depende sa pananaw ng bawat mambabasa. Kaya bilang mag-aaral ng kasaysayan, mahalagang alam nating mag-interpret at pamilyar tayo sa iba't ibang uri ng interpretasyon. Sa aking mga kabata, isa poem purportedly written by Jose Rizal when he was 8 years old and probably one of Rizal's most prominent works. There is no evidence to support the claim that this poem, with the now immortalized lines, ang hindi magmahal sa kanyang salita, mahigit sa hayop at malansang isda, was written by Rizal. And worse, the evidence against Rizal's authorship of the poem seems all unassailable. There exists no manuscript of the poem handwritten by Rizal. The poem was published in 1906 in a book by Hermenegildo Cruz. Cruz said he received the poem from Gabriel Vieto Francisco, who claimed to have received it in 1884 from Rizal's close friend, Saturnino Rasiles. Rizal never mentioned writing this poem anywhere in his writings, and more importantly, he never mentioned of having a close friend by the person of Rasiles. Further criticism of the poem reveals more about the wrongful attribution of the poem to Rizal. The poem was written in Tagalog and referred to the word kalayaan, but it was documented in Rizal's letter that he first encountered the word through a Marcelo H. del Pilar's translation of Rizal's essay, El Amor Patreo, where it was spelled as kalayahan. While Rizal's native tongue was Tagalog, he was educated in Spanish, starting from his mother, Teodora Alonso. Later on, he would express disappointment in his difficulty in expressing himself in his native tongue. The poem's spelling is also suspect. The use of letter K and W to replace C and U, respectively, was suggested by Rizal as an adult. If the poem was indeed written during his time, it should be used the original Spanish orthography that was prevalent in his time. Sa aking mga kabata, ito ay isang tula na bali-balitang isinulat noong siya ay 8 years old at isa sa mga gandang na isulat niya. Ngunit walang ebidensya na sumusuporta na isinulat niya ito ni Rizal. Nakapaloob dito ang linyang ang hindi magmahal sa kanyang salita ay daig pa ang hayop at malansang isda. Wala ngang lumalabas na manuscript ng tula na ito na isinulat sa kamay ni Rizal. Unang naipublish ang tulang ito noong 1906 na mabasa sa libro ni Hermenegildo Cruz. Ayon kay Cruz, natanggap niya ang tulong ito mula kay Gabriel Vieto Francisco, kung saan sinasabi naman ni Francisco na tanggap niya ito mula sa malapit na kaibigan ni Rizal na si Saturnino Rasiles. Ngunit hindi nabanggit ni Rizal na naisulat niya ang tula at hindi niya rin nabanggit na mayroon siyang malapit na kaibigang si Rasiles. Doon lumalabas ang maling pagpapangalan ng tula bilang ang nagsulat raw nito ay si Rizal. Ang tula ay nakasulat sa wikang Tagalog at gumagamit ng salitang kalayaan. Ngunit ang salitang kalayaan ang ginagamit ni Rizal sa kanyang mga sulatin. Ang native tongue ni Rizal ay Tagalog. Ngunit nang siya ay tinuruan ng kanyang ina ng Spanish, doon na siya nagsimulang mahirapan na magtagalog. Primary source, Albus Lag. On the 16th of March, 1521, as they sailed in a westerly course from Ladrones, they saw land towards the northwest, but owing to many shallow places they did not approach it. They found later that its name was Yunagan. March 16, 1521, sila ay naglalayag mula sa Ladrones at sa bandang northwest ay nakita nila ang land ng Yunagan, ngunit di sila tumuloy. They went instead the same day southwards to another small island named Suluan, and there they anchored. There they saw some canoes, but these fled at Spaniards' approach. This island was at 9 2/3 degrees north latitude. Nagtungo sila ng pa-south, at may nakita muli silang island na tawag ay Suluan, at doon na nga sila naglagi. Departing from those two islands, they sailed westward to an uninhabited island of Gada, where they took in a supply of food and water. The sea around that island was free from shallows. Albo does not give the latitude of this island, but from Pigapita's testimony, this seems to be Aquada, or Humonhon, at 10 degrees north latitude. Matapos nito, sila ay nagtungo westward, at doon nila natagpuan ang isang isla na tinatawag na Gada. Ito ay isang uninhabited na isla, at dito sila nanguha ng supply ng tubig at kahoy. From that island, they sailed westward towards a large island from Ceylani that was inhabited and was known to have gold. Ceylani, or as Pigapita calls it Ceylon, was the island of Leyte. Mula sa isang iyon, nagtungo sila muli pa westward sa malaking islang tinatawag namang Ceylani at kilala dahil mayroong matatagpo ang gold sa islang ito. Sailing southwards along the coast of that large island of Ceylani, they turned southwest to a small island called Mazava. That island is also a latitude of 9 2/3 degrees north. Matapos sa Ceylani, nagpa-southward naman sila at nakarating sa isang maliit na isla na ang tawag ay Mazava. The people of that island of Mazava were very good. There are the Spaniards planted across a pan of mountain top, and from there they were shown 3 islands to the west and southwest, where they were told there was much gold. They showed us how the gold was gathered, which came in small pieces like peas and lentils. Ang mga tao daw sa Mazava ay mababait, at doon itinayo ng mga Spaniards ang cross. The people of that island of Mazava were very good. There the Spaniards planted a cross upon a mountain top, and from there they were shown in 3 islands of the west and southwest, where they were told there was much gold. They showed us how the gold was gathered, which came in small pieces like peas and lentils. Ang mga tao daw sa Mazava ay mababait, at doon itinayo ng mga Spaniards ang cross. Mula doon ay makikita ang 3 isla. Ipinakita din sa kanila kung paano ang pagkuha ng ginto. From Mazava, they sailed northwards again towards Ceylani. They followed the coast of Ceylani in a northwesterly direction, ascending up to the 10 degrees of latitude, where they saw 3 small islands. Mula sa Mazava, sila ay nagtungo mula sa Ceylani. Sinundan nila ang coast ng Ceylani, pero sa northwest ang direksyon, at doon nila nakita ang 3 isla. From there, they sailed westward some 10 leagues, and there they saw 3 islands, where they dropped anchor for the night. In the morning, they sailed southwest some 12 leagues, down to a latitude of 10 1/3 degree. There they entered a channel between 2 islands, one of which Matan and the other Subo. Namalagi muna sila sa islang iyon buong gabi. Nang dumating ang umaga, nagbangka naman sila pa southwest, at doon nila nadaanan ang channel sa pagitan ng 2 isla na tinatawag na Matan at ang Subo. They sailed down that channel and they turned westward and anchored at the town, La Villa, of Subo. where they stayed many days, and obtained provisions and entered into a peace pact with the local king. Dumaan sila sa channel na iyon at huminto sa bayan ng Subo, kung saan sila nanatili ng ilang araw. The town of Subo was on an east-west direction with the islands of Suluan and Mazava. But with Binusaba and Subo, there were so many shallows that the boats could not go westward directly but has to go, as they did, in a roundabout way. Ang lokasyon ng bayan ng Subo ay nasa east-west direction. It must be noted that in Alva's account, the location of Masaba fits the location of island Limasawa at the southern tip of Leyte, 9 degrees 54. Also, Albo does not mention the first mass, but only planting of the cross upon a mountain top, from which could be seen 3 islands, to the west and southwest, which also fits the southern end of Limasawa. Dapat tandaan na base kay Albo, ang lokasyon ng Masava ay sumakto sa lokasyon ng Limasawa. Isa pa, hindi rin nabanggit ni Albo ang tungkol sa first mass na tanging nabanggit lamang niya ay paglalagay nila ng cross sa bundok na kung saan makikita mula dito ang tatlong isla. Primary source, Pigapetta's testimony on the route of Magellan's expedition. Saturday, 16 March 1521, Magellan's expedition sighted the high land named Zamal, which was some 300 leagues westward of Ladrones, now the Marianas Island. March 16, 1521, sa paglalakbay ni Magellan ay nakita siya ng isla na tawag itong Zamal, na nasa 300 leagues westward ng Ladrones Island. Sunday, March 17, the following day, after sighting Zamal Island, they landed on another island which was uninhabited, and which lay to the right of the above-mentioned island of Zamal, to the right. Here would mean on their starboard going south or southwest. There they set up 2 tents for the sick members of the crew, and had so killed for them. The name of this island was Sumunhon. This island was located at 10 degrees north latitude. March 17, nung sumunod na araw ay nagdaong naman sila sa isang isla na uninhabited na nasa bandang kanan ng Zamal. Ang islang ito ay tinatawag na Humunhon at nasa 10 degrees north side. On that same day, Sunday, March 17, Magellan named the entire archipelago the island of St. Lazarus, the reason being that it was Sunday in the Lenten season when the gospel assigned for the Mass and liturgical office was the 11th chapter of St. John, which tells of the raising Lazarus from the dead. Noong araw din na iyon, pinangalanan ni Magellan ang buong archipelago ng island of St. Lazarus, dahil ito ay araw ng linggo ng Lenten season, at ang gospel ay tungkol sa 11th chapter of St. John, na kung saan ito ay pagkabuhay ni Lazarus mula sa kamatayan. Monday, March 18, in the afternoon of their second day on that island, they saw a boat coming towards them with 9 men in it. An exchange of gifts was expected. Magellan asked for food supplies, and the men went away, promising to bring rice and other supplies in 4 days. March 18, nang dumating ang hapon sa pangalawang araw mula sa isla na iyon, mayroon silang nakitang paparating na bangka, sakay ang 9 na tao. Nagkaroon sila ng palitan. Si Magellan ay nanghingi ng supply ng pagkain at nangako na babalik ang mga iyon, dala ng bigas at iba pang supplies sa 4 na araw. There were 2 springs of water on that island, Humunhon. Also, they saw there some indication that there was gold in these islands. Consequently, Magellan renamed the island and called it the watering place of good omen. Sa isla ng Humunhon ay may 2 bukal na tubig at may sabi-sabi rin na mayroon ding ginto sa isla, kung kaya't pinalitan ni Magellan ang pangalan ng isla at tinawag itong watering place of good omen. Friday, March 22, at noon, the natives returned. This time they were in 2 boats and they brought food supplies. Dumating nga ang mga taong nakilala nila Magellan na ngayon ay sakay na ng 2 bangka na may dala-dala ng supply ng pagkain. Magellan's expedition stayed 8 days at Homonhon, from Sunday, March 17, to the Monday of the following week, March 25. Ang pananatili ni Magellan sa isla ng Homonhon ay tumagal ng 8 araw mula March 17 hanggang March 25. Monday, March 25, in the afternoon, the expedition weighted anchor and left island of Homonhon. In the ecclesiastical calendar, this day, March 25, was the feast day of Incarnation, also called the Feast of the Annunciation, and therefore Our Lady's Day. On this day, as they were about to weigh anchor, an accident happened to Pigafetta. He fell into the water but was rescued. He attributed this narrow escape from death as grace of the crew, the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary on her feast day. March 25. Itong araw na ito ay huling araw ni Magellan sa Homonhon, at ito rin ay feast day of the Incarnation of Our Lady's Day. Sa di inaasahang pangyayari, nahulog sa tubig si Pigafetta, buti na lang ay naligtas siya. Ang kanyang pagkaligtas mula sa kamatayan ay tinuturing niyang biyayang ipinagkaloob sa kanya ng Blessed Virgin Mary. The route taken by expedition after leaving Homonhon was toward the west-southwest, between 4 islands, namely Sinalo, Hiunanghan, Ibuson, and Albarane. Very probably Sinalo is a misspelling in the Italian manuscript for what Pigafetta in his map calls Ceylon, and Albo calls Ceylani, namely the islands of Leyte. Hiunanghan, a misspelling of Hinunangan, seemed to Pigafetta to be separate island, but is actually on the mainland of Leyte. On the other hand, Hibuson, Pigafetta's Ibuson, is an island of Leyte's southern tip. Thus, it is easy to see what Pigafetta meant by sailing toward the west-southwest. Past those islands, they left Homonhon sailing westward towards Leyte, and then followed Leyte coast southward, passing between the island of Hibuson on their port side and Hiunangan Bay on their starboard, and then continued southward, then turning westward to Mazawa. Pagkaalis nila sa Homonhon ay mayroon silang 4 na dadaanang isla na Sinalo, Homonhon, Hibason, at Albarane. Sila ay nagtungo pa sa iba't ibang isla. Thursday, March 28. In the morning, Holy Thursday, March 28, they anchored off an island where the previous night they had seen a light or a bonfire. That island lies in a latitude of 9 and 2/3 towards the Arctic Pole, and its longitude of 162 degrees from the line of demarcation. It is 25 leagues from the Aquada, and it is called Mazawa. March 28, O Holy Thursday sa Mazawa Island naman na nagpalipas ng 7 araw. Ang Mazawa ay nasa latitude of 9 and 2/3 papuntang Arctic Pole, at ang longitude ay 162 degrees mula sa line of demarcation. They remained 7 days on Mazawa Island. Nanatili sila sa Mazawa sa loob ng 7 araw. Thursday, April 4, they left Mazawa bound for Cebu. They were guided thither by the King Mazawa, who sailed in his own boat. Their route took them past 5 islands, namely Ceylon, Bohol, Caninghan, Baybay, and Gatinghan. Itong araw na ito, April 4, patungo naman sila sa Cebu sa tulong ng King of Mazawa, lulan ng kanyang sariling bangka. Sa kanilang paglalayag ay nadaanan nila ang 5 isla na pangalan Ceylon, Bohol, Caninghan, Baybay, at Gatinghan. Ang Gatinghan they sailed westward to the 3 islands of the Camotes group, namely Poro, Pasihan, and Ponson. Here the Spanish ships stopped stopped to allow the king of Masawa to catch up with them since the Spanish ships were much faster than the native Balanghay, a thing that excited the administration of the king of Masawa. Mula Gatinghan, nagpatungo naman sila pagawing west at nakita nilang tatlong isla, Camotes Group, namely Poro, Pasihan, and Punson. From the Camotes Islands, they sailed southwards towards Cebu. At mula Camotes Island ay nagtungo naman sila sa pa-south kung saan naroon ang Cebu. Sunday, April 7, at noon, they entered the harbor of Cebu. It had taken them 3 days to negotiate the journey from Masawa northwards to the Camotes Islands and southwards to Cebu. April 7, tanghali na nang makarating sila sa daungan ng Cebu. Umabot ng 3 araw ang paglalakbay nila mula Masawa pa-north ng Camotes Island at pa-south naman papuntang Cebu. It must be pointed out that both Albo and Pigafetta testimonies concede and corroborate each other. Pigafetta gave more details on what they did during their week-long in Masawa. Ang pahayag ni Albo at Pigafetta tungkol sa expedition ni Magellan ay halos magkapareho, ngunit si Pigafetta ay nagtutugma ang naibigay na detalye tungkol sa Masawa. March 28, Thursday. In the morning, they anchored near an island where they had been seen alight the night before. A small boat, Boloto, came with 8 natives to whom Magellan threw some trinkets as presents. The natives paddled away, but 2 hours later, 2 larger boats, Balanghay, came, in one of which the native king sat under and owing on mats. At Magellan's invitation, some of the natives went to the Spanish ship, but the native king remained seated in his boat. An exchange of gifts was effective. In the afternoon that day, the Spanish ships weighed anchor and came closer to shore. Anchoring near the native king's village, this Thursday, March 28, was Thursday in Holy Week, Holy Thursday. March 28 na umaga, sila ay nakaangkla malapit sa isla kung saan may nakita silang bangka na may sakay na 8 katutubo na agad umalis. Sa kanilang pagbabalik ay kasama na nila ang kanilang itinuturing na hari na hudyat ng pagpapalitan ng regalo. Kinahaponan, ang mga barko ng Espanya ay nakadaong na malapit sa nayon ng hari. Ang araw na iyon ay tinatawag na Huwebes Santo. Friday, March 29, the next day, Holy Friday. Magellan sent his slave interpreter ashore in a small boat to ask the king if he could provide the expedition with food supplies, and to say that they had come as friends and not as enemies. In reply, the king himself came in a boat with 6 or 8 men, and this time went up Magellan's ship, and the 2 men embraced. Another exchange of gifts was made. The native king and his companions returned ashore, bringing with them 2 members of Magellan's expeditions as guests for the night. One of the 2 was Pigafetta. Kinabukasan ng Biyernes Santo, pinadala ni Magellan ang isang alipin na tagapagsali ng salita sa hari upang sabihin na sila ay kakampi at hindi kalaban, na kung maaari ay bigyan sila ng supply ng pagkain. Bilang sagot ng hari na mismo ang pumunta sa kanilang barko, kasama ang iba pang tauhan, at inimbita sila sa kanilang nayon sa isang pagsasalo. Ang isa sa inimbita ay si Pigafetta. Saturday, March 30, Pigafetta and his companion had spent the previous evening feasting and drinking with the native king and his son. Pigafetta deplored the fact that although it was Good Friday, they had to eat meat. The following morning, Saturday, Pigafetta and his companion took leave of their host and returned to the ships. March 30 nang si Pigafetta at ang kanyang kasama ay umalis na sa nayon at bumalik sa barko. Bago sila umalis ay nagdiwang muna sila sa nakalipas na araw at kumain ng karne kahit na Biyernes Santo. Sunday, March 31, early in the morning of Sunday, the last of March and Easter Day, Magellan sent to the priest ashore with some men to prepare for the Mass. Later in the morning, Magellan landed with some 50 men and Mass was celebrated, after which a cross was venerated. Magellan and the Spaniards returned to the ship for the noonday meal. But in the afternoon, they returned ashore to the plan to cross on the summit of the highest hill. In attendance, both at the Mass and at the planning of the cross were the King of Mazawa and the King of Butuan. March 31, umaga ng linggo, nagpadali sa Magellan ng pari sa nayon upang maganda sa gagawing misa. Nagtanghali ay pumunta na din si Magellan sa nayon kasama ang kanyang mga tauhan upang ganapin na ang misa na nagpapangaral pa ng krus. Nang kinahaponan ay itinanim nila ang krus sa pinakamataas na burol kasama dumalo ay ang hari ng Mazawa at ang hari ng Butuan. Sunday, March 31, on that same afternoon, while on the summit of the highest hill, Magellan asked to the two kings which ports he should go in order to obtain more abundant supplies of food than were available in that island. They replied that there were 3 ports to choose from: Ceylon, Cebu, and Calagan. One of the 3, Zubu port with the most trade. Magellan then said that he wished to go to Zubu and to depart the following morning. He asked for someone to guide him thither. The kings replied that the pilots would be available any time. But later that evening, the king of Masawa changed his mind and said that he would himself conduct Magellan to Zubu, but that he would first have to bring the harvest in. He asked Magellan to send him men to help with the harvest. March 31, sa parehong araw na iyon, habang nasa tuktok ng mataas na burol ay tinatanong ni Magellan ang dalawang hari kung saang daungan ba mas magandang pumunta para makakuha ng mas maraming supply ng pagkain kumpara sa nayon. Isinagot ng dalawang hari ang Ceylon, Calagan at Zubu, daungan na mas maraming palitan, kaya napagpasyahan ni Magellan na doon na dumaong. Humingi ng tulong si Magellan kung pwedeng magpadala sila ng gabay sa kanya at agad naman siyang sinabihan na pwede ang kanilang tauhan kahit anong oras. Subalit nagbago ang isip ng hari ng Masawa at sinabing siya na mismo ang gagabay dito sapagkat kailangan niya nang ipunta doon ang kanyang mga ani. Nagpatulong ang hari kay Magellan na kung pwede ay tulungan siya ng mga tauhan nito na may ari. Monday, April 1, Magellan sent men ashore to help with the harvest, but no work was done that day because the two kings were sleeping off their drinking boat the night before. April 1, ipinadala ni Magellan ang kanyang mga tauhan upang tumulong mag-ani, ngunit walang natapos na trabaho sapagkat tulog pa ang hari dahil sa kanilang pag-iinuman kagabi o bago ang araw na iyon. Tuesday, April 2, and Wednesday, April 3. Work on the harvest during the next days, Tuesday and Wednesday, the 2nd and the 3rd of April. April 2 and 3, dalawang araw ng pag-aani. Thursday, April 4, they leave Mazawa bound for Cebu. April 4, ang kanilang araw ng pag-alis patungong Cebu. Using the primary sources available, Jesus preached Miguel A. Bernard in his work Butuan or Limasawa, the site of the first Mass in the Philippines, a re-examination of evidence. 1981 lays down the argument that in the Pigapetta account, a crucial aspect of Butuan was not mentioned: the river. Butuan as a riverine settlement situated on Agusan River. The beach of Masawa in the delta of said river. It is a curious omission in the amount of the river, which makes parts of a distinct characteristics of Butuan geography that seem to be too important to be missed. Gamit ang mga pangunahing mapagkukunan, ang paring gisot na si Miguel A. Bernard sa kanyang obra na Butuan o Limasawa, the site of the first Mass in the Philippines, a re-examination of evidence 1981, na inilapag ang argumento na sa Pigapetta hindi nabanggit ang ilog sa obrang Butuan. Ang Butuan ay isang pag-areglo sa ilog na matatagpuan sa ilog ng Agusan. Ang dagat ng Masawa ay nasa delta ng nasabing ilog. Ito ay kakulangan sa ilog dahil sa natatanging katangian ng heograpiya ng butuan na masyadong importante para maalis. The Age of Exploration is a period of competition among European rulers to conquer and colonize lands outside their original domains. Initially, the goal was to find alternative routes by sea to get to Asia, the main source of spices and other commodities. Existing routes to Asia were mainly by land and cost very expensive. A sea route to Asia means that Europeans could access the spice trade directly, greatly reducing costs for traders. Spain's major foray into the exploration was through Christopher Columbus, who proposed to sail westward to find a shortcut to Asia. Was able to reach the Americas, which was then cut off from the rest of the known world. Spain colonized parts of North America, Mexico, and South America. In the 16th century, they were also able to reach the Philippines and claim it to the Spanish crown. Later on, other European rulers would compete with the activities of exploring conquering lands. It must also be pointed out that later on, after Magellan's death, the survivors of his expedition went to Mindanao and seemingly went to Butuan. In this instance, Pigafetta vividly describes a trip in a river, but note that this account already happened after Magellan's death. Ang Age of Exploration ay panahon ng pakikipagkompetensya ng mga pinuno ng European sa pagsakop sa mga lugar sa labas ng kanilang nasusukupan. Sa simula ay paghahanap lang talaga ng madadaanan sa dagat para makapunta sa Asya ang kanilang hangarin. Dahil sa Asya, ang pangunahing mapagkukunan ng pampalasa at iba pang mga kalakal. Sa kadahilanang ang daan sa lupa ay napakamahal kung kaya't naghanap sila ng alternatibo at ang daan sa dagat ang naging solusyon. Ang pangunahing paglusob ng Espanya sa paggalugad ay pamamagitan ni Christopher Columbus na nagmumungkahi na naglayag papakanluran para makahanap ng mabilis na ruta pa Asya. Nakarating siya sa Amerika at nasakop ng Espanya ang parte ng North America, Mexico at South America noong ika-16 na siglo. Nasakop din nila ang Pilipinas at magmula noon ay nakipagkompetensya na ang mga pinuno ng Europeans sa pagsakop ng mga lupa.
Case 2. What happened in the Cavite Mutiny? The historic year of two events sa Cavite Mutiny in the martyrdom of the Three Brides. This is an important milestone in the Philippine history and have caused ripples throughout time, directly influencing the decisive events of the Philippines Revolution. Toward the end of the century, in this case, study will zoom into the events of the Cavite Mutiny. A major factor, the awakening of nationalism among the Filipinos of that time. The death or suffering or exaggerated suffering to obtain sympathy or admission. An open rebellion against the proper authorities, especially by soldiers, sailors, against their. An extreme form of this, especially marked by a feeling of superiority over other countries, advocacy of political independence for a particular country, a forcible overthrow of the government or social order in favor of a new system. And then third, on how the event was attempt in overthrowing the Spanish government in the Philippine history. Ngayon, papaliwanag ko na po siya. Isang pag-alsa ang naganap noong taong 1872 na umabot sa 200 Pilipinong sundalo at obrero ng arsenal sa Cavite ang madaling nasugpo ng pamahalaang kolonyal. Ang pag-aaklas, ngunit naging makabuluhan ito sa kasaysayan dahil ginamit itong dahilan upang supilin ng mga Pilipinong makabayan at humihingi ng reforma sa pamahalaan. Ang pag-aalsa ang ginamit na batayan upang isakdal at bitayin ng 3 paring Pilipino na sina Jose Burgos, Sento Zamora at Mariano Gomez, mas kilala bilang Gumpursa. At ang kanilang pagkamartir ang higit na nagpaalab sa nasyonalismo ng mga puso ng Pilipino, magdudulot sa huli ng imagsikang pang 1896. Pinaniniwalaang nagugat ang pag-aalsa sa pagpapataw ng buwis ni Gobernador General Rafael de Escuerdo sa kadahilan ng hindi matagal na silang hindi saklaw nito. At nang matanggap ng mga manggagawa ang kanilang sahod, ay binawasan na ito ng buwis sa pangunguna ni General La Madrid. Enero 20, taong 1872, nakubkob nila ang Faro sa San Felipe at pinaslang ang 11 Espanyol na opisyal. Inakala ng mga nag-aklas na sasamahan sila ng mga sundalo sa Maynila. Kudyat dapat nang simula ng labanan ng mga paputok mula sa Intramuros noong gabing iyon. Sa kasamaang palad, ang kanilang paputok na nakita at sinunod ay isa lamang paputok para sa pagdiriwang na pista ng Birhen ng Lorito, ang patron ng Sampaloc. Sa pangambang simula ito ng mas malawakang revolusyon, isang pulutong ng mga sundalo sa pamumuno ni General Felipe Genoves lumusob sa muog ng San Felipe. Sumuko ang mga nag-aklas kabilang sila La Madrid at pinaputukan sila sa utos ni Genoves. Katapos ng pag-aalsa, dinisarmaan ng lahat ng sundalo sa arsenal, pinatapon sa Mindanao. Dinakip at binitay ang mga pinaghihinalang sumusuporta sa pag-aaklas. Maraming mariwasa at ilustrado ang nadawit dito. Ginamit itong dahilan ng pamahalang kolonyal at mga praileng Espanyol upang idawit ang tatlong paring tinagurian ngayong bilang gumbursa. Pagkatapos ng maigsi at kahina-hinalang paglilitis, binitay ang tatlong paring Pilipino sa harap ng publiko sa pamamagitan ng garote. Sa halip ikatakot, tinandaan nito ng mga patriota na pruweba ng kalupitan ng mga mananakop.
My name is Leonel Antona and my report is all about of Philippine history.
Rizal's connection to the Katipunan. Jose Rizal's never became involved in the organization and activities of the Katipunan, but the Katipuneros still look up to him as a leader. In fact, Rizal's name was used as a password among the society's highest-ranking members who were called Bayani. As an organization, is the La Liga Filipina, an organization Rizal founded with Andres Bonifacio as one of its members. Hiniling ni Andres Bonifacio sa pamamagitan ni Dr. Pio Valenzuela ang naatasang sugo ng mga Katipunero upang kausapin si Rizal na noon ay ipinatapon sa dapitan. Sambuanga na nakikipagtulungan sa balak na himagsikan, hindi tumutol si Rizal sa paghihimagsik. Subalit ang kanyang itinututol ay ang kakulangan ng armas at paghahanda sa kasanayan ng mga Katipunero. In 1996, the Katipuneros pleaded to the informed Rizal of their plans to launch and revolution. They sent P. Valenzuela to visit Rizal in Dapitan. Dahil sa pagtuklas ng Katipunan noong 1896, nirespeto ng mga Espanyol ang lahat ng mga pinaghihinalaang kasapi. Ang iba naman ay nakatakas. Pinulong ni Andres Bonifacio ang lahat ng mga pinuno ng samahan sa Pugad Lawin. Dito na naipakisamahan na itinuloy ang kanilang planong paghihimagsik. Ang pagpunit ng mga kanilang mga sidula nakasabay ng sigaw ng "Mabuhay ang Pilipinas" ang siyang naging hudyo sa pagsisimula ng himagsikan. Opisyal na nagsimula ito noong August 23, 1896 sa pangunguna ni Andres Bonifacio. The Gumburza is the collective name of the three martyred priests. Ang salitang Gumburza ay nabuo mula sa pangalan ng tatlong pari na sina Padre Jose Burgos, Padre Jacinto Zamora at si Padre Mariano Gomez na binitay noong February 17, 1873. Dahil sa makatauhang kamatayan, sumiklab ang damdamin ng mga Pilipino at nag-iwan ito ng matinding epekto, lalong-lalo na si Rizal. At dahil dito, inihali ni Rizal ang filibusterismo. Jacinto Zamora, ang pangalawang binitay, ipinanganak ng August 14, 1835. Si Jose Burgos naman ang huling binitay sa tatlong martir na pari. Camburosa were executed by Agarot in public assailants purportedly witnesses by Ayang Jose Rizal. Dead Rizal retract. There seems to be no need to the debate whether Rizal retracted his writing against the Catholic Church on the very last day of his life, while a new independent and testimony settled in debate finally. Ayon sa ilan, si Jose Rizal ay pinaslang ng mga katonalistang Espanyol 120 years ago. December 30, 1896 ay naging bayani dahil sa kanyang sinulat upang wasakin ang ideya ng kolonyalismo at palayain ang isip natin upang mabuo ang bansa. Ang nalamitang hiri at ang el filibusterismo at ang kanyang mga sanaysay na sa lasolinalidad na kumwestiyon sa mga paniniwala na kababulag sa atin, lalo na ang pagsunod sa kagustuhan ng mga prayle bilang sugo ng Diyos. Ngunit ilang oras bago siya barilin, pinirmahan daw ni Rizal ang isang dokumento na nagsasabing siya raw ay isang Katoliko at binabawi niya ang lahat ng kanyang mga sinulat laban sa simbahan. Nakilala ang dokumento bilang ang retraction dahil sa kanyang pagbabalik loob sa simbahan. Kinasal sila ni Josephine Bracken ang kanyang huling pag-ibig. Ayon sa ilan, mas lalong naging dakila si Rizal sa pagkakilala ng kanyang mga kamalian laban sa pampanampalataya. Ngunit para naman sa marami, hindi ka paniwala na sa huling sandali ng kanyang buhay, babawiin niya ang kaniyang sinulat, ang dahilan ng kanyang mismong pagkabayani. Kahit natagpuan ang sinasabing dokumento ng retraction noong 1935, patuloy ang pagdududa lalo sa natatanging eyewitness. I declare a Catholic in this religion in which I was born and educated. I wish to live and die. I retract with all my heart, with every in my words, writings, publications, and conduct has been contrary to my character as son of the Catholic Church. I believe and I confess whatever she teaches and submit to whatever she demands, which my acts may have caused, and so that and people may pardon me. Manila, 29 of December of 1896. Jose Rizal.
Case number 4, where did the cry of rebellion happen? So, isa nangyari noon, mahalagang nangyari noong Spanish colonies ay itong cry of rebellion na maraming or some journalists na ito ay tinawag na El Grito de Rebellion o kaya Cry of Rebellion, na ito ay naging marka ng pagre-rebelde ng mga naunang Pilipino noon para ipaglaban nila yung kalayaan ng bansang Pilipinas natin ngayon. So sa case na to, ano nga ba ang problema? Ano yung pinag-uugatan or ano yung magiging parang ugat ng pag-aaral natin dito? So nandito ay what is the problem with this case? Ang problema dito ay kung ano yung eksaktong oras, eksaktong date, at ano eksaktong lugar kung saan yung cry of rebellion nangyari. So dito, dahil nga sa iba-iba yung nagbigay ng account, iba't ibang sources, primary sources and secondary sources ang gagamitin natin dito. Hindi may iwasan na may pagkakaiba-iba. Merong disagreement sa mga accounts na isulat nila. So sabihin ko dito yung mga iba't ibang account na naibigay nila related to cry of rebellion. Ayon kay Lieutenant Olegario Diaz, isang Guardia Civil, nangyari ang cry of rebellion sa Balintawak noong August 25, 1896. Sinasabi naman ni Teodoro Calao, isang Filipino historian, na sa Kangkong Balintawak noong last week ng August 1896 ito nangyari. Pero, sinabi naman ni Santiago Alvarez, isang Katipunero, anak ni Mariano Alvarez, nangyari ang cry of rebellion sa Bahay Toro in Quezon noong August 24, 1896. Sinasabi naman ni Pio Valenzuela, isa ding Katipunero, nangyari ang cry of rebellion sa Pugad Lawin noong August 23, 1896 At sang-ayon kay Gregorio Zaide, isa ding historian, nangyari ang Cryop Rebellion sa Balintawak noon namang August 26, 1896. At kumontra naman dito si Theodore Agoncillo dahil sinabi niya ang Cryop Rebellion ay nangyari sa Pugad Lawin noon namang August 23, 1896. At batay sa research ng mga historian na sila Milagros Guerrero, Emmanuel Encarnacion, Ramon Villegas, nangyari ang Cryop Rebellion sa Tandang Soras Barn in Gulud, Quezon City noong August 24, 1896. Makikita natin na pare-pareho na patungkol sa Cryop Rebellion, pero yun nga ang naging problema dito sa case study na to. Aalamin natin kung bakit nag-iba-iba yung lugar, yung oras at panahong nangyari itong Cryop Rebellion. Batay sa isang primary sources, isang account of the cry ni Guillermo Masangkay, sinasabi niya na may isang malaking pagpupulong ang nangyari sa Balintawak sa bahay ni Apolomo Samson. Sinasabi niya dito na ang kasama sa mga pagpupulong ay sila Emilio Jacinto, Aguido del Rosario, Tomas Remedio at marami pang mga prominenteng pangalan at leaders ng katipunan at mga board directors ng organization. Kasama din doon ang delegates na galing sa Bulacan, Cabanatuan, Cavite at Morong. Sinasabi dito na pagkadating ng ika-siyam ng umaga noong August 26, sinasabi niya na ang pinag-uusapan nila ay nagtatanungan sila sa pangunguna ni Andres Bonifacio kung sisimulan na ba nila ang pag-aaklas sa Spanish government. Pero merong kumontra sa kanya sila Teodoro Plata, Bricio Pantas at Pio Valenzuela. Sinasabi niya nila ayaw nila na mangyari ang pag-aaklas o ang revolt nila sa government ng maaga. So ang ginawa ni Andres Bonifacio ay lumabas siya kasi alam niya na matatalo siya sa discussion na yon. Kaya lumabas siya at kinausap niya ang maraming taong naghihintay sa desisyon ng mga leaders. At sinabi niya na naaalala ba ninyo ang nangyari sa mga kasama natin noon na kung paano sila pinatay sa Bagong Bayan. Ang gusto ba ninyo na bumalik na lang tayo sa lugar natin kung saan pagdating natin dun papatayin lang tayo ng mga Kastila. Anong gusto nyo? Gusto ba ninyo na dahil tayo ay nakilala na nila, sila daw ay kilala ng Spaniards. Kung makikita sila, ang magiging kahantungan lang nila ay papatayin sila. So sabi ni Bonifacio sa mga tao, anong gusto nilang mangyari? So ang sinabi ng mga tao, revolt. Gusto nila na simulan na yung plano nilang pag-aaklas sa Spanish government. So sinabi ni Bonifacio, isang sign na pumapayag kayo sa pag-aklas na to ay punitin ninyo ang sedula nyo. Kasi ang sedula, sa pananaw nila noon, ang sedula yung parang sign ng pagkaalipin ng mga Pilipino noon. Kaya ang mga tao noon ay pinunit nila ang sedula nila bilang sign na ayaw nilang magpaalipin. Sila ay nag-aaklas sa Spanish government. Base naman sa second primary source na pag-aaralan natin na ang pamagat ay Cry o Pugad Lawin ni Pio Valenzuela. Sinasabi niya dito na mga kilalang leaders ng katipunan na sila Andres Bonifacio, Emilio Jacinto, Procopio Bonifacio, Pio Valenzuela at mahigit 1,500 members ng katipunan ay nagkatipon-tipon noong August 23, 1896. Dito ay nag-usap sila kung mag-aaklas ba sila o hindi sa Spanish government. Pero dito sinasabi niya na walang naging maayos na desisyon. Walang naging maayos na parang wala silang naging idea talaga na parang doon yung susuportahan nila. So lahat sila, they ended up touring their cedula. Katulad ng sinabi doon sa naunang source, primary source na pinunit nila ang mga sedula nila bilang tanda ng pag-aaklas nila. Dito din sasabi din ni Pio Valenzuela na pinunit nila, doon sila nagtapos, pinunit nila ang sedula nila at sumigaw sila ng Long Live the Philippines, Long Live the Philippines. Yun ang ginawa nila, yun ang inilalahad ni Pio Valenzuela sa Cry of Pugad Lawin. So sa pag-aaral sa iba't ibang sources related sa Cry of Rebellion, makikita natin meron disagreement sa lugar, at sa date kung saan yung nangyari. Kasi ang mga account na ito ay sinulat lang ng hindi isang tao. Hindi lang isang tao, kaya hindi maiwasan na merong pagkakaiba-iba. So, dito pag-usapan natin kung ano yung mga lugar at dates na naisulat para ano magiging basehan natin o kaya magiging sagot natin na kung saan nangyari ba ang Cry of Rebellion. Sinasabi dito na sa pag-aaral sa primary and secondary sources, merong 4 na lugar na parang candidate kung saan nangyari ang Cry of Rebellion. Kasama doon ang Balintawak, Kangkong, Pugadlawin at Bahay Toro. At to sinasabi nila ang mga lugar na ito ay lahat nasa Balintawak o kaya yung ibang parte dito ay part na siya ng Caloocan na ngayon ay tinatawag na Quezon City. Dito naman sa dates, sinasabi na ang mga dates na pwedeng maaring ginanapan noong Cry of Rebellion ay August 23, August 24, August 25, and August 26 year 1896. So dito naman, ang explanation naman kung bakit paiba-iba ang dates o kaya hindi eksakto yung date. Sinasabi dito na sila Bonifacio at yung mga ibang katipunero, ibang kasama nila ay lumilipat-lipat ng iba't ibang lugar dahil ang Spanish government, ang Spaniards, mga Kastila doon ay mainit na ang mata sa kanila. Kaya ang ginawa nila, pailipat-lipat sila ng lugar para hindi sila malocate kung ano talaga yung eksaktong lugar nila. So, where did the Cry of Rebellion happen? Sana may natutunan kayo na lang. Thank you and God bless!